up guys, you join me today for another tutorial. Today's video is on the Fiat Grande Punto. I'm going to show you how to remove and replace the alternator. A fairly simple job, minimal tools and something you can all do yourself on your drive at home. So if you have an alternator problem or an alternator belt problem, don't take it to the garage, watch this video. And this covers a lot of cars. There's a video also on the Ford Fiesta, that one over there, which also covers the alternator. That's under the thermostat video, as you have to take the alternator off to get to that. I'm going to do it today on this Fiat Grande Punto. It's an 07 model, but they're all very similar on most cars. So let's get to it. So guys, join me at the front of the car. I'm going to have a look over the engine at first, and you want to look to your left and to the back. And as you look over it, straight away you'll see this bit here. This is your alternator. It's quite easy to get to. You can see most of the bolts from the top, so you've got 3 bolts holding it together. Nuts and bolts, should I say. So I've got my bad camera work there. So you've got one here, got one just down here. I don't know if you can see, that's a bit dark. That's it focusing, just there, my finger's pointing to. And there's one just sort of behind this pulley down at the back. You can feel it and you can see it if you sort of move your head around. In fact, if I put my camera down there, you can just about see it in between the belts sticking out there, but we'll get a light on when we're actually taking it off so you can see a bit closer. So the first thing you want to do is loosen this bolt here. You can see that one there, and as you can see it's got a bit of a track where it can move up and down on. And that one has the same sort of thing. Oh no, that one's just a single bolt, it has the track at the back. So see the gap at the back here. This bit here, which allows the alternator to sort of slide on the bolt for you to tension the belt. So what I want you to do first is loosen this top bolt here, but don't take it out, just loosen it. And then this one here, loosen that as well, but again don't take it out, just loosen it. And this should take the tension off the bolt and allow you to just slip this belt off the ring gear. Now when you do take the belt off, be careful with it, try not to damage it or trap it under anything, just put it out of the way, because they do snap with even the slightest bit of damage on them. So the next thing you need to know is what tools to use. So I'm going to get some sockets out and a ratchet and an extension bar. You're basically going to need probably maybe a set of spanners, but mostly sockets, ratchet and extension bars. So we'll get all that out and I'll tell you what size you need to take it off. It's quite a simple job. It's just a case of undoing the 2 tension bolts, taking the tension off the belt and removing the belt out of the way, and then you can take your electrical connection off the back, which again I'll show you how to do. That might have another bolt on it with the earth lead, but either way I'll show you. And then undo your bottom bolt, the one at the bottom there, out the way, and the whole thing will lift out of place, and it should fit straight through this gap here. Sometimes you have to take other things off other cars, but this should pull straight out here and you can get the alternator out to replace it. If it's just a belt you're doing, you don't need to take the alternator off, just loosen your tension belts to get the actual belt off, so you don't have to actually take anything off as such other than the belt if it is just the belt you're changing. So let's get to it. Right guys, so we've got some tools out. So I can tell you now that the bolt at the very bottom that you can just see the socket sticking out of, I've just loosened it a little bit, is a 16mm. I've used a deep socket there just to pump past the belt, or you could also use an extension bar and a ratchet. It wasn't too tight, did it with the ratchet, no need for a strong bar. This bolt here is also a 16mm, but I'll tell you the top nut is a 17mm nut, so you'll need the different size socket for that. So like I said earlier, you want to loosen this nut here that the camera's on now, the top one, your 17mm, and just take the tension off that bottom one a little bit, but don't loosen it too much. Just take it, you know, literally take the tightness off it, and then fully loosen that one down there and that one there, which will allow the whole alternator to sort of shuffle about and take the tension off your belt, so you can take your belt off safely, get that out of the way, and then we can pull the actual alternator out of the car. So guys, I've got 17mm socket on the top nut. I'm just going to loosen this off now. Right, so I've undone the 16mm nut, like you can just see there, sort of to the right of the screen. I've just loosened off this nut here, which is a 17mm. As you can see now, it allows the whole alternator. I just loosened off the two tension nuts a bit more. As you can see how it slides there past that nut where my thumb is, and up top. So those nuts are still in, as you can see, just allowing you to slide it all the way and pop this belt off here, which just like that should pop off. So if the belt's still a bit tight, just undo your nuts a bit more and then it will slide along enough for you to just pop the belt off with your fingers. So I'm going to pull this whole belt off just to show you guys. So that is your alternator belt. It looks in fairly good condition. You can't really see on the camera, but when I look really close, there's a few small cracks in it. Try and show you guys, but it won't zoom focus. Perfect world, if this was my everyday car, I would change this, but for the sake of this video, we're going to put this one back on. I do recommend you changing though for what it's worth. They only cost £10–15. Right, so now we've got the alternator fully loose. So what we're going to do, in fact, is undo these nuts now, and hopefully there'll be enough play on the wires to turn the alternator around, see the back of it while the wires are still connected, and then disconnect the wires so you can pull it out. That's the plan. As you can see, I've undone the nut up here. There's a couple of washers on them, so careful you don't lose them. Put them safely out of the way. Get my 16mm socket back on my ratchet. I'm going to stick that back down here and undo the bottom bolt to fully loosen the alternator. Now, one thing I will say while I'm undoing this is about the tension of the belt. And when we put it back on, we want to get it to a tension where it feels tight, so you can't really wiggle it, but it does have movement in it. So you want it to feel tight to a point where it's not going to go anywhere, but you can move it. You don't want it to be that rigid that you can't flex the belt at all. You've got to be able to move it about 1 centimetre each way, if that. I've had comments and questions asking about the tension of the belt. You can buy a tensioning guide tool. I don't think they're needed. Just a good judgment will work. As you can see now, the whole thing's coming loose. I just pulled out this bottom bolt. That is an actual bolt, that one. A bit easier for you. And now I can just pull it off that thread and expose to you guys the back of the wires. You can see we've got 2 wires going into the back of it. Now, just be aware, they are quite heavy, these. They both have sockets. Just about see them, can't you, there? So we've got this one, which looks like a 10 or even a 30mm, and this tiny thing, which is probably a 6 or 8mm. I'll confirm those sizes in a second, but the next thing I'm going to do is loosen both of these, pull the wires out of the way, and the whole alternator will pull out of this gap, and that's you out. Right guys, I've took this smaller wire off of the 2. This one here, that was an 8mm socket, I can confirm that. I can also confirm that this one is a 13mm, but I can't get it off because we've got a bit of excess thread sticking up from the nut, which requires a deep socket. So for example, that there is a deep socket, that there is a normal size one, a shallow socket, and the shallow socket won't go over that thread without fouling. I don't have a deep 13, unfortunately, so I'm going to leave this on, as we've done the whole disassembly process. So you get to this stage, you'd undo that with your deep socket and then just literally pull the whole thing. As you can see, it's all loose. Let it focus. It's all loose there, and that'll come straight out of this gap here. So we're now at the stage of putting things back together and show you that all important bit of getting the belt tension right. Reverse of everything I've just shown you. Put this cable back on first, and obviously you will have that one off as well. So both of these back on, 2 nuts tightened up, and then I've left that nut hanging out of there, that bolt hanging out of there, so that will slide straight back through that hole, and then you can just stick the socket, the nut on the end loosely, just to hold it in place while you line the others up. Don't worry about the belt until the end. You've got to get all 3 bolts in, finger tight, not tight, so you can still move the alternator around, and then we'll get the belt on. So I'm not going to film this bit. I'm going to get these wires on, get the bolts back lined up, and then we'll show you how to do the belt. So we now have the alternator back in place, wires back on the back, 3 bolts and nuts back in place, bottom, the one there and the one there. Just getting my belt ready, it's in my hand. So as you can see, there's a pulley down there, the main crank pulley that it spins round, and obviously it connects up to this pulley here. So we're going to loop it around this bottom one first, just make sure the grooves in the belt go into the grooves. You'll feel them sort of sitting into the grooves of the pulley. Just catch it down here, see them there, putting it around that one. Make sure this is all the way it can be that way. So you can see it moves. And we're just going to pull the belt up from the bottom and simply loop it round. It might be a bit tight. Just make sure the alternator is as far as it can go. Sometimes the alternator gets stiff, so you think it's all the way, but it's not. As you can see, this is proving a bit tight, so I'm just going to double check that the belt is right on all the pulleys and it's in its little grooves. You know, it might be a little bit tight, but a bit of persuasion. You can see there, just trying to get it on this last bit now. So what I'm doing now is I'm just turning the alternator by hand a bit, which will allow the belt to pop on. Now if you do this, watch it don't pop onto your fingers though. And there we go, the belt is on. So now your belt's back in position, just double check it's all straight and on right. And it's just a case of moving this back to put the belt back into tension and tightening up. Now what I've done here is I've already tightened them quite far and just give it a little sort of, sometimes you have to put a crowbar or a screwdriver in there just to prise the alternator back. And this has kept its original position. So right now, the bolts are still fairly loose and I'm going to tighten this top one up to stop it moving anywhere. That's the first one to do. 17 mil on it. It doesn't have to be a deep socket, it's just that's what I had to hand. I'm just going to tighten it. But not dead tight. Just tighten it enough for it so it won't move. So now I can see that this belt is nice and tight. So as you can see here, I'll try and get it on the camera good. I'm just pushing it with one finger, my index finger, right in the middle between the 2 pulleys. I'm just going to push down. You can see it moves about a centimetre. It has some movement in it. Now that's what you want. You don't want to do it so tight that the belt just feels rock hard, because it will snap straight away. And at the same time, do it a bit too loose and it's either going to come off or just slip all the time. So you want it so it feels tight, like you couldn't pull it off if, you know, even if you had to, you couldn't pull it off, but it's still got a bit of movement in it. You can still, you know, as you can see there, sorry about the bad camera, you can still flex it a bit. I'm happy with that tension, so I'm going to go for it, tighten it up straight away. What I will say is, if you're unsure or you think it feels a bit too tight, loosen it. Better for it to slip a bit and you have to tighten it again, then it's a snap and you've got to buy a new belt. So that's about it for the alternator removal and replacement. This video will sort of cover everything you need to know to replace an alternator belt or replace the whole alternator unit. If you are replacing the actual unit itself, best to get a voltage tester on the new one to make sure it works, especially if you're buying second hand. Other than that, I think we've covered everything for this video. I hope you found it useful. If you're looking to do this job and you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up so I know that they're worthwhile making. If you have any requests for any other tutorials on this car, the Fiat Grande Punto, or even any other car like Ford Fiesta Zetec S, or even the Vauxhall Corsa, which isn't here at the moment. That's a new car that'll be introduced in a video coming soon, Vauxhall Corsa. But that's about it from this. I hope you found it useful.